Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about the theme of hope in the Jewish people and kind of where they were at come the beginning of the New Testament. So in previous videos, you have learned a little bit about the Old Testament main events and people, and then you also learned about what was going on in the intertestamental times. So you kind of saw the big ups and downs of the relationship that God and his people had. If you remember, God had made a covenant with the people of Israel, and that covenantal relationship was kind of up and down. It was good, and then the Israelites would not do as they were supposed to, and so then it was bad, and up and down. So you kind of see the big arc of the story, and so now you need to see how it continues into the New Testament and where we're at. And so we need to see what was going on in the mind of the Jews at this time in history. So basically, just taking a pulse on how they're doing. What was the nature of Judaism at this time? What was the religion looking like? And what was going on in the minds of the people in this time after going through some of those major events at the end of the Old Testament and in this intertestamental time of silence from God. So one thing to note is Judaism was never kind of this fringe thing in the lives of the Jews. It wasn't like some religion today where this is just like some kind of thing that you say you are by name and then you live your life how you want. Instead, Judaism was at the center. This religion that they held to was kind of the guiding star for their lives. It's what they built the rest of their lives around. And so if you remember, or if you saw throughout the Old Testament, how important both covenant and the promises of God are. And so you see for sure this covenant that God made with his people. This is the primary thing of the Old Testament, is this covenant. But also are the promises that God made along with this covenant. And a few of them are God had promised through Abraham that he was going to make a great nation and that they would be rulers of the world. He promised that he would be their God and they would be his people. And so these were major promises to the people that, as I said before, Judaism is at the center of their lives. And so these promises are at the center of their lives. And so getting to specifics, kind of in this framework of covenant and promise, we see that the Jews were hoping for four things, okay? So first, they are hoping for restoration of the 12 tribes. And we know from the Old Testament background, some things that happened, restoration is needed of these 12 tribes. They want pure worship, to be able to purely worship their God. They want a new purified temple. So though they had a temple, it was not what they would consider pure. And then finally, they had hope for a Messiah, for a king, for a Christ to come and kind of fulfill all of these things and make all these things right. And so at the beginning of the New Testament, we see it's important for us to see this hope that they have had as they wait for the promises to come true through the Messiah. So they are actively waiting on this Messiah to come. And you'll find as we get into especially the Gospels, the first four books, that the Jews had very specific expectations of who the Messiah, how he would come about, how he would live, and just all these expectations of what the Messiah would be and what he would do. So you can kind of see that the current state of things at the beginning of the New Testament, things aren't going so good for the Jews. The temple is corrupt. Their land is occupied. They are being ruled, not ruling amongst themselves, but they have someone ruling over them. In this case, it is the Romans are ruling over them. And there are internal tensions. And you'll see in another video some of these, the internal religious parties in Judaism. But overall, you see kind of this big picture that's being painted that things aren't going so good for the Jews. Yet they have this hope that things are going to get better. And so in the midst of things not being so good, they're actively looking for that Messiah to come to fulfill all of these promises that God made that are recorded in the Old Testament. So just keep in mind in the videos ahead that this is kind of where the Jews are at, but at the same time, in the midst of this not so great time, they are looking for things to change. They have hope, and that's what they're orienting their lives around.